Hi, third grade. I'm going to read to you Chapter 10 of Mr. Popper's Penguins. Chapter 10, Shadows. Next day, the picture of Mr. Popper and Captain Cook appeared in the Stillwater Morning Chronicle, with a paragraph about the house painter who received a penguin by air express from Admiral Drake in the Fairway Antarctic. Then the Associated Press picked up the story, and a week later the photograph, in rotogravure, could be seen in the Sunday edition of the most important newspapers in all the large cities in the country. And I'm going to stop right there because this word I looked up to learn how to say it.
Rotogravure.
Rotogravure, and it looks like it is a type of printing process. Naturally, the Poppers all felt very proud and happy. Captain Cook was not happy, however. He had suddenly ceased his gay exploring little walks about the house and would sit most of the days sulking in the refrigerator. Miss Popper had removed all the stranger objects, leaving only the marbles and checkers, so that Captain Cook now had a nice orderly little workery. "He wouldn't play with us any more," said Bill. "I tried to get some of my marbles from him, and he tried to bite me." "Naughty Captain Cook," said Janey. "Better leave him alone, children," said Miss Popper. "He feels mopey, I guess." But it was soon clear that it was something worse than mopiness that ailed Captain Cook. All day he would sit with his little white circled eyes staring out sadly from the refrigerator. His coat had lost its lovely glossy look. His round little stomach grew flatter every day. He would turn away now when Miss Popper would offer him some canned shrimps. One evening she took his temperature, and it was 104 degrees. "Well, Papa," she said, "I think you had better call the veterinary doctor. I'm afraid Captain Cook is really ill." But when the veterinarian came, he only shook his head. He was a very good animal doctor, and though he had never taken care of a penguin before, he knew enough about birds to see at a glance that this one was seriously ill. "I will leave you some pills. Give him one every hour, then you can try feeding him on sherbet and wrapping him in ice packs. But I cannot give you any encouragement, because I'm afraid it is a hopeless case. This kind of bird was never made for this climate, you know. I can see that you have taken good care of him, but the Antarctic penguin can't thrive in still water." That night the Poppers sat up all night, taking turns changing the ice packs. It was no use. In the morning Miss Popper took Captain Cook's temperature again. It had gone up to 105. Everyone was very sympathetic. The reporter on the Morning Chronicle stopped in to inquire about the penguin. The neighbors brought in all sorts of broths and jellies to try and tempt the little fellow. Even Miss Callahan, who had never had a very high opinion of Captain Cook, made a lovely frozen custard for him. Nothing did any good. Captain Cook was too far gone. He had slept all day now in a heavy stupor, and everyone was saying that the end was not far away. All the Poppers had grown terribly fond of the funny, solemn little chap, and Mr. Popper's heart was frozen with terror. It seemed to him that his life would be very empty if Captain Cook went away. Surely someone would know what to do for a sick penguin. He wished that there was some way of asking advice from Admiral Drake, away down at the South Pole, but there was not time. In his despair, Mr. Popper had an idea. A letter had brought him his pet. He sat down and wrote another letter. It was addressed to Dr. Smith, the curator of the great aquarium in Mammoth City, the largest in the world. Surely, if anyone anywhere had an idea what could cure a dying penguin, this man would. 2 days later there was an answer from the curator. "Unfortunately," he wrote, "it is not easy to cure a sick penguin. Perhaps you do not know that we too have in our aquarium at Mammoth City a penguin from the Antarctic. It is failing rapidly, in spite of everything we have done for it. I have wondered lately whether it is not suffering from loneliness. Perhaps that is what ails your Captain Cook. I am, therefore, shipping you under separate cover our penguin. You may keep her. There is just a chance that the birds may get on better together. And that is how Greta came to live at 432 Proudfoot Avenue. Wow, that was a very interesting chapter. Okay, so you will see in your slides, we are going to be talking today about how chapters and scenes build on each other. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of take you through what we've talked about so far in the previous chapters. So in chapter 1, we're introduced to Stillwater and the Popper family. We learn about Mr. Popper's job and how he is a painter, but he always dreams about an adventure. Then we learn that Mr. Popper wrote to Admiral Drake and that Mr. Popper should be waiting for something, but we didn't know what. Then in chapter 3, we learn that Admiral Drake sends Mr. Popper a penguin. And we learn all about the different noises that this penguin makes. In chapter 4, the penguin is given a name, Captain Cook. And we figure out where he's going to live in the house. Chapter 5, that builds on because the serviceman comes to drill holes in the icebox where the penguin is going to live. And that chapter ends with a policeman knocking at the door. Now that takes us to this week when we started with chapter 6. The policeman meets the penguin and he says it's okay as long as he stays in his area and that he needs to get a license for the penguin. In chapter 7, Captain Cook filled his icebox with things around the house. And Mr. Popper dresses in a suit that looks like a penguin himself. In chapter 8, Mr. Popper and Captain Cook went on a walk. They had an unpleasant run-in with a neighbor, Miss Callahan. And there's a photographer and a reporter who took a picture of them, and a crowd started to form around them. Then in chapter 9, Captain Cook makes a scene at the barbershop. And we learn that he likes to climb upstairs and then slide down them on his stomach. So that leaves us to chapter 10, what we just read about. And we learned that Captain Cook becomes sad and starts to run a fever. Mr. Popper reaches out to, let me remember his name. Mr. Popper reaches out to, I think it's Dr. Smith. Yes, Dr. Smith. And Dr. Smith ends up sending Dr. Smith, oops. Mr. Popper a penguin, and her name is Greta, to see if that will cheer Captain Cook up. Okay. So that's kind of what happens in chapter 10. Now what you're going to do next is you can look over these two slides to help you with your exit ticket that will be linked right here, talking about things that happen, events that build on each other, and events that happen before and after. And you can always go back and look in your book on Epic to help you on the exit ticket. Good luck!